Most people buying a handgun right now are making a $600 mistake, and they won't find out until it's too late. The gun industry is counting on that. These 10 pistols are built for people who are done being fooled. And number one, almost nobody sees it coming. The average pistol is tested for 10,000 to 15,000 rounds. Sounds like a lot until you actually shoot. 2 years, maybe 3. And then the problems start. Springs go soft, feed ramps get sloppy, triggers lose their feel, and the gun you trusted, the one sitting in your nightstand right now, quietly becomes the gun that lets you down. But some pistols were built on a completely different standard. Guns that have been running hard for 30, 40, even 50 years through wars, through deserts, through conditions that destroy everything average. These are not the guns with the biggest marketing budgets. Their reputation was earned in the field, by people whose lives depended on it. 10 guns, 10 completely different reasons to own them. And the one at the end will make you question every handgun purchase you have ever made. Number 10. Ruger G P100. Most people skip revolvers without a second thought. That is exactly the mistake this gun was built to punish. The GP100-357 Magnum is not competing with modern semi-autos on capacity or concealability. It is competing on something most people stop thinking about the moment they leave the gun store. What will happen to this gun in 10 years? Triple locking cylinder, overbuilt frame, stainless construction on most variants, internal components machined around decades of actual field use, not around hitting a production price target. Gunsmiths who work on these regularly say the same thing: there is rarely much to fix. That is not a small thing to say about any firearm that has been in continuous production since 1986. Here is what the trend cycle ignores. When 9mm shelves run dry, 357 Magnum is still there. When polymer frames crack under sustained heat, this cylinder is still turning. A double-action revolver eliminates entire categories of malfunction by design. It either fires or it does not. A properly maintained GP100 almost always fires. Specs: caliber 357 Magnum, also accepts 38 Special. Capacity 6 rounds. Barrel length 4.2 inches. Weight 40 ounces. Price range $700 to $800. The verdict: heavy for daily carry. 6 rounds is a real capacity gap against modern semi-autos. Honest limitations that deserve honest mention. But this is the gun people hand down because it still works exactly as built after decades of real use. Nothing else on this list makes that same claim quite the same way. Number 9. Glock 17. 4 decades, 140 countries. More documented field data than any other handgun on Earth. And people still walk past it because they think they already know the story. They don't. The Glock 17 has been running since 1982. Austrian military trials, FBI qualification, special operations units across 6 continents. That is not a marketing claim. That is 4 decades of verified performance at a scale no other pistol has ever matched. The polymer frame was engineered to account for thermal expansion, sustained heat, and impact stress that would crack lesser frames within a few thousand rounds. The barrel is cold, hammer-forged hardness all the way through, not just on the surface. That is a fundamentally different thing from what most pistols offer at any price point. Drop it in a river. Fish it out 3 weeks later. It still cycles. Documented. Repeated. Proven in conditions that factory testing never even attempts to simulate. Specs: caliber 9mm parabellum. Capacity 17 rounds. Barrel length 4.49 inches. Weight 25.06 ounces. Price range $500 to $600. The verdict: the benchmark everything else gets compared to. But here's the thing about benchmarks. The next gun on this list was forged in a military torture test so extreme that most manufacturers refused to enter. And it won. Number 8. BERETTA 92FS. In the mid-1980s, the U.S. military ran a 30,000-round endurance test. Sustained firing, intentional ammunition overloads, extreme heat, extreme cold. Most pistols fell apart. The 92FS kept running. Military units have since documented running these pistols past 100,000 rounds with nothing beyond standard maintenance. That is not a brochure claim. There is a verified paper trail going back decades of actual government service. The open slide design reduces debris accumulation during sustained fire. The rotating barrel holds accuracy longer than a tilting barrel design ever would. Over time, that difference compounds. The 92FS still shoots like a 92FS long after a comparable pistol has started to feel like a different gun entirely. Specs: caliber 9mm parabellum. Capacity: 15 rounds. Barrel length: 4.9 inches. Weight: 34 ounces. Price range: $650 to $750. The verdict: large grip. Not every hand fits it naturally. Worth handling before you commit. But when the conversation is about what has actually been verified to last under documented military conditions, this one has receipts that most pistols on any list simply do not have. What comes next costs about the same. Built on a geometry so precise it has been copied more than any other pistol design in history. And the copies still never quite get it right. Number 7. SIG Sauer P226. This gun was born lost, and that is exactly why it became what it is. In the 1984 U.S. military sidearm trials, the P226 outscored the BERETTA technically. BERETTA won on price, so the U.S. Navy SEALs people who could not afford a pistol to fail under any circumstances chose the P226 anyway. They ran it for over 30 years through combat deployments, ocean submersion, and field conditions that no factory evaluation even comes close to replicating. Steel frame. Steel slide. No polymer flex under recoil. Over 40,000 rounds that flex quietly accumulate in polymer pistols. Tolerances open up, accuracy falls off, and the gun starts feeling like a different weapon. With the P226, that process is dramatically slower. The gun holds its precision further into its service life than almost anything else in this category. Specs: caliber 9mm parabellum. Capacity: 15 rounds. Barrel length: 4.4 inches. Weight: 34.4 ounces. Price range: $850 to $950. The verdict: the DA/SA trigger demands time to master. That is the honest trade-off, and anyone telling you otherwise has not shot one seriously. But a pistol that Special Operations trusted their lives to for over 3 decades does not need defending. The record speaks for itself. What comes next almost did not make this list. The reason it did is more interesting than the gun. Number 6. CZ75. Most people have never seriously considered this pistol. The people who have never gone back to anything else. That is not brand loyalty talking. That is geometry. Czech engineers wrapped the frame rail around the outside of the slide, the opposite of how almost every other pistol on Earth is built. That single decision distributes wear across a dramatically larger contact surface. It is why C75s with 100,000 rounds still feel like they just left the factory. Steel on steel, properly fitted, a lockup that refuses to open up over time the way everything else does. Competitive shooters have run stock CZ75s for decades under high-volume conditions. The accuracy at 50 yards consistently embarrasses pistols costing twice as much, not because of any special feature, but because the mechanical relationship between barrel and slide stays precise long after a comparable pistol has started to drift. Specs: a caliber 9mm parabellum. Capacity: 16 rounds. Barrel length: 3.9 inches. Weight: 34.3 ounces. Price range: $450 to $550. The verdict: smaller aftermarket than dominant platforms. Real consideration worth knowing before you buy. But for metal-framed accuracy that compounds over years of serious use, almost nothing at this price point competes with it, honestly. Drop it in the comments which of these you already own. 5 left, and this is where the list gets genuinely surprising. Number 5. HECKLER and KOCH VP9. Most people buy a pistol, run it for a few years, and never understand why it starts feeling loose. The trigger gets mushy. The accuracy drifts. The gun that felt tight in the store slowly becomes something they tolerate instead of trust. It is not their grip. It is not their ammo. It is what happened or did not happen before that gun ever left the factory. In HK, components that pass inspection at most manufacturers get pulled. Their internal quality control rejection rates are reportedly among the highest in the industry. The result is a pistol that starts tighter than most guns finish. Tight tolerances from round 1 means slower wear through the entire service life. Less slop to begin with, less slope developing over time. A VP9 with 30,000 rounds still feels like a VP9, not a worn-out platform held together by familiarity. Specs: caliber 9mm parabellum, capacity 15 rounds, barrel length 4.09 inches, weight 25.5 ounces, price range $750 to $850. The verdict: the polygonal barrel is cold, hammer-forged steel, tighter seal with the bullet, better velocity consistency, significantly slower bore wear over tens of thousands of rounds. For daily carry through lint, sweat, humidity, and the kind of neglect real-world carry actually produces, it handles all of it without complaint. Over-engineered, people say. They always mean it as a compliment, because the next gun applied that same obsession over 100 years before HK even existed. Number 4. COLT 1911. It has been here since 1911. Let that sit for a second. John Browning's geometry has barely changed in over 100 years. Not because manufacturers lack ambition, because the design does not need to change. All steel construction, a single-action trigger that every major manufacturer has studied, copied, and attempted to improve, and still has not fully matched. A combat record stretching from the First World War through operations happening right now. There are documented 1911s from World War I that still function today. A quality build from Colt, Springfield Armory, or Wilson Combat, maintained with real discipline, will outlast every polymer pistol on this list by decades. That is not nostalgia talking. That is a statement backed by over 100 years of verified use. Specs: caliber 45, ACP, capacity 8 rounds, barrel length 5 inches, weight 38.5 ounces, price range $900 to $1,200. The verdict: lower capacity than modern service pistols, demands serious maintenance discipline, honest limitations that deserve honest mention. But nothing else here carries a proven combat record across more than a century of actual use. Nothing comes close. Number 3. Smith & Wesson MP 2.0. The original M&P failed its own users. Trigger complaints were widespread, consistent, and impossible to ignore. Smith & Wesson did something most manufacturers quietly avoid. They listened, rebuilt it properly, and released the 2.0. The flat-face trigger has a significantly improved reset. The stainless steel chassis embedded in the polymer frame kills the flex that slowly destroys tolerances in standard polymer pistols over time. The grip texture holds in wet conditions without demanding a death grip that causes fatigue during extended use. The Armornite finish is the detail that separates this gun in the long run. Most coatings sit on top of the metal. They chip, they flake, they slowly expose bare steel to sweat and humidity year after year. Armornite penetrates into the surface. It is part of the metal itself, not a layer on top of it. For a carry gun living in a holster every day for years, that distinction is not a small thing. It is everything. Specs: caliber 9mm parabellum, capacity 17 rounds, barrel length 4.25 inches, weight 27.2 ounces, price range $550 to $650. The verdict: one of the strongest value propositions on this entire list. Not the most exciting gun in a store, the most honest gun over a decade of real daily use. Number one is going to make a lot of people angry. The ones who understand why it is here already know they are never buying another handgun again. Number 2. FN509 LS Edge. The FN509 LS Edge was designed for shooters who demand perfection, built with cold hammer-forged steel and engineered for precision at every level. Competition shooters have proven this pistol at the highest levels. The ergonomics are flawless. The trigger is refined. The accuracy compounds over thousands of rounds. The gun maintains its zero when everything else drifts. Stainless steel construction throughout, ambidextrous controls. A dust cover designed for optics. This is a pistol built on zero compromises. Specs: caliber 9mm parabellum, capacity 17 rounds, barrel length 5.03 inches, weight 29.1 ounces, price range $700 to $800. The verdict: pricier than most on this list. Not for everyone's carry situation, but for shooters who refuse to accept anything less than dominance in their firearm, this is the answer. Number 1. Glock 19. You expected something rare, something obscure, something the industry buried in a warehouse somewhere. Here's what they actually buried the truth about. Why you keep buying guns. Every new platform, every new generation, every optics-ready revision. It all exists for one reason. The moment you own one truly reliable pistol and stop chasing the next thing, they lose a customer permanently. So they sell you features you do not need. They sell you generations that solve problems you never had. They sell you the feeling that your current gun is already behind, and the next one is finally the right one. The Glock 19 is the gun that ends that cycle. Compact enough for daily concealed carry, full enough for home defense. The same cold hammer-forged barrel, the same over-engineered frame, the same documented field reliability as the 17, in a package that disappears under a shirt and runs flawlessly in conditions that destroy far more expensive, far more complicated pistols. Specs: caliber 9mm parabellum, capacity 15 rounds, barrel length 4.02 inches, weight 23.61 ounces, price range $500 to $600. The verdict: law enforcement agencies across the world chose this over guns costing 3 times as much. Not because of budget constraints, because when you strip away the marketing, the trend cycles, and the launch pressure reliability over decades, beats novelty every single time. The industry wants you to believe the next purchase is the one that finally gets it right. The Glock 19 got it right 30 years ago, and it has not stopped being right since. The market is not designed to help you buy smart, it is designed to keep you buying. Every few months something new drops and gets presented like it finally fixes everything the last release got wrong. Most of the time nothing is fixed. It just looks different enough to feel like progress. And people spend money they did not need to spend because the excitement of something new feels like useful information. It is not. Every pistol on this list passes the only filter that actually matters long term. Does it work reliably under real conditions? Is it honest about what it costs to maintain? Will it perform the same way 10 years from now as it does on day one? All 10 pass. Without hesitation. One of these fits your life right now, and you already know which one. So here's the question. Which one of these would you trust for the next 20 years? Not the most popular one. Not the one your favorite channel sponsors. The one that actually matches how you live, how you carry, and how you shoot. Drop it in the comments. Those answers are worth more than anything said in this video. If this keeps money in your pocket, hit like, drop a comment, and subscribe. Straight talk about long-term decisions. Every single time. See you next time.